Hello and good morning everyone. I bet not a lot of you had this on your 2024 bingo cards, but CitiesSkylines 1 is getting new official content in the form of 2 content creator packs. The first one is the Mountain Village pack by Thomas13TO, and the second one is Map Pack 3 by yours truly. The Mountain Village pack contains 45 amazing quality Alpine style assets that are surprisingly versatile and can fit into almost any type of build. You should definitely check out Thomas's pack if this tickles your interest. Going forward though, this video will primarily focus on Map Pack 3. As you can surely imagine, I've got a lot to get off my chest. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. With all the debacles of CitiesSkylines 2 and the rocky road since launch, why did I even bother doing this? I love CitiesSkylines 1. It is by far my favorite game of all time, and this is the ultimate way for me to pay tribute to it and the large community of players still playing it, especially on the console side that doesn't get all the user-generated content of the Steam Workshop. With that said, I don't think CitiesSkylines 2 is a lost cause, and I don't think Paradox sees it that way either. The new CitiesSkylines 1 content is probably based on the realization that there still is a market for packs like these, even way past the game's expected lifetime. The longevity of these types of games is not unprecedented either, and it is easy to draw comparisons to the classics of the genre like SimCity 4. For me at least, it makes sense to keep making content for CitiesSkylines 1, at least until CitiesSkylines 2 can stand on its own feet. So what about the pack then? The pack includes a total of 10 maps, 10 ploppable intersections, and 3 scenarios. This is the first content creator pack to include scenarios, and the first official pack of any kind that includes intersections at all. For the next part of the video, I will go through all the maps, intersections, and scenarios one by one. There may be some spoilers as to what real-world inspiration I've taken. If you prefer not to have this revealed, or perhaps you want to play the minigame where you guess for yourself, feel free to mute the video for a bit or just skip to the next chapter. By the way, all footage in this video is captured with vanilla settings without any graphic mods, so what you see is very much what you get. The 10 maps are the main part of the pack and follow the formula pioneered by Sanctum Gamer and Sidai with map packs 1 and 2 respectively. The maps are inspired by locations from across 6 continents that all fall within an overarching mountain theme. If I had to use 3 keywords to summarize the pack, it would probably be diversity, playability, and aesthetics. I did set the standards pretty high for myself, and not a lot of things in this pack are half-assed. In fact, I'd even go so far as to call the pack pretty full-assed. Fondue Lake is the first map I made for a pack. The setting is inspired by the Swiss Alps, and in particular the area around Lake Lucerne. It features beautiful green hillsides and majestic mountains with ample space for building your city down in the valley, on the shores of a lake. It comes with rail and highway networks worthy of Swiss standards, and even an outside shipping connection across the lake. This way the map can also stand in as a coastal mountains map, if the idea of being landlocked is putting you off. There's traces across the map of the region's rich history, but I'll leave that for you to explore and find for yourselves. Caldera County was among the last maps I made for a pack. This time we're in Tanzania and the Ngorongoro crater. This world-famous location has inspired many creators before me, including Mr. Miyagi himself, who fittingly enough has been something of a map-making mentor to me. I always imagined this map would be great for science fiction style builds, where the dormant volcanic caldera acts as a safe haven or shelter from the dangers of the outside world. Accordingly, the 25-tile unlockable area is set up to cover the whole caldera. This is also a great time to acknowledge another Mr., namely Mr. Mason, whose contributions to the game in terms of tree assets just makes map making so much more enjoyable. This map, for instance, wouldn't have been possible to do justice without the baobab and umbrella thorn trees being added to the base game. The map also features some discreet nods to the player that I've included throughout the pack. For example, here it's a hint to connect the dead ends of a rail line with a tunnel to access an additional outside connection. Expedition Harbor is set as the last outpost of civilization before Antarctica, and is loosely based on the area around Ushuaia in Argentina. Wild rivers, dense evergreen forests, and scenic beaches define this map. It is still hard for me to fathom that such a small variation of trees can look so good, but I will die on the hill that the vanilla conifer is one of the best trees ever made for the game. This map has probably got my favorite atmosphere of all the maps, and whenever I load it up, I can't stop flying through the valleys and breathing in the clean mountain air. I think the map is pretty flexible theme-wise, and I can also see it working out for a Pacific Northwest setting or perhaps even a Japanese one. Karstlands is based on the area around Jiangsu in China's Guangxi province. The seeds for this map probably started in my head when I visited this area back in 2014, before this game was even released. It's truly a magical and unique environment that comes with its own very unique city building challenges. Some of my favorite details on the map are the old Chinese walled city ruins in the starting tile, the sandbanks along the river, and the terraced rice farms in the northern hills of the map. If you want to see more cities content set in this area, I can recommend you check out Adonis's channel. They've built far more true-to-life recreations of this area than I ever could, for both CitiesSkylines 1 and CitiesSkylines 2. Redcliff Reservoir is my best attempt at using the techniques that Sanctum Gamer developed for Map Pack 1 to create an arid environment using the vanilla European theme sand texture. The map is based on height maps of the Inanda Dam near Durban, South Africa. I think this map would work great as a setting for a planned capital city, kind of like Canberra or Brasilia, as these are both located by man-made lakes. The centerpiece of the map is the custom dam structure, complete with a functional spillway, as my homage to the map-making genius Bringer of Fire. I absolutely love the aesthetic of man-made lakes, and Larry Skyline's The Dragon map is another source of my inspiration here. Milestone Valley is probably my favorite name for any of the maps, as it was the 5th map I completed. It is probably also one of the maps that I'm most proud of in general. The theme is aggressively American and set in the Rocky Mountains. The real-world basis is Jackson, Wyoming, near the Grand Teton National Park, with inspiration taken from the circular irrigation farms just across the state border in Idaho. I am in love with the mountain pass road on this map, and I can just imagine a large skyline popping up over the crest as the valley comes into view. Oh, and before you ask, yes, the field painting on the map does align with the unlockable tiles, which is probably the most satisfying aspect of this whole pack. Nordheim represents many different places from across my home country of Sweden, and as the name may imply, in particular the more northern parts, and the provinces of Jämtland and Lappland in particular. The towns of Östersund and Kiruna have been heavily referenced for inspiration here. The map features grand fjell landscapes above the tree line and endless conifer forests below. The playable area is situated between two large bodies of water at different elevations, with a rapidly flowing river between them, just waiting to be dammed up. I played around with a more industrial theme while making this map, with a large open pit ore mine and a pretty extensive rail network to go with it. Promise Island is the pack's Tropical Paradise Island map. It has probably the best looking mountain of all the maps, which is based on the Coco crater from Oahu, Hawaii, added onto the terrain of some of the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. Isolated beaches, dense jungles, mangrove swamps, and stunning waterfalls define this map. Lack of buildable area will definitely challenge most players, but I think results will make the struggle worthwhile. The map should work out great for dense cities with incredible visual contrast between the tiny skyscrapers and the massive centerpiece peak, kinda similar to real-life Honolulu or Hong Kong. Orca Sound is my take on the Lofoten archipelago of northern Norway. It is probably the most idyllic map of the pack and definitely the map with the pointiest peaks. I wanted this map to be a mashup with a little bit of Scottish influence, so there's also a castle and some discontinuous stone walls that I suppose should keep the sheep off the roads. In addition to the eye-catching suspension bridge, the map features some unusual infrastructure, like the one-way roads used as detailing elements, and the non-functional road ferry docks. The one-way roads are easily upgraded to two-way versions, should the player choose to make them more functional, and at least one of the ferry connections can be converted into a functional bridge or tunnel to gain access to an additional outside connection. Tranquility Cove is the most ambitious map of the pack, and it takes inspiration from all over the world. The base terrain is a stitched together mix of Bay of Kotor, Montenegro, Cape Town, South Africa, and Auckland, New Zealand, with plenty of freehand terraforming to fill in the gaps. Many players will probably see some San Francisco Bay Area inspiration as well, and I cannot deny it, seeing as I basically included a vanilla version of the Golden Gate on the map. There's also a tiny bit of Halifax, Canada with the Star Fort by the bridge, but in general the map is supposed to have a slightly more Mediterranean climate. All in all, it's a pretty flexible map, and considering players' preferences for lots of coastline, I think this might become one of the more popular maps of the pack. The next part of the pack are the 10 intersections. I always thought it was awkward how the base game only included 4 intersections and that no official pack ever added more. For PC players this might not be a big deal because of the Steam Workshop, but for console players I feel at least a selection of basic intersections would be a great addition to the game. My goal with intersections has not been to create a complete library of every possible type and variation, but rather to create a baseline of a few highly flexible building blocks. As an example of this flexibility, I have made sure to account for upgradability to mass transit DLC roads for those who would like to employ better lane mathematics. This is also the case for most interchanges pre-built onto the maps of a pack. The Clovermill interchange is a 4-way system interchange to use at 90-degree intersections between highways. It is loosely based on the Kreuz Mönchengladbach in Germany and Timboh's workshop interchanges. I don't know if the name is accurate, but it's good enough for me. The double Trumpet interchange is a 4-way system interchange to use at 60-degree intersections between highways. As with so many other exotic interchange types, you can find one in Gothenburg, Sweden, if you want to look for it for yourself in Google Maps. This interchange has an unfortunate issue that may make placement of it a little wonky. I will explain this further in the next chapter and show you how to fix it. The freeway stack interchange is a system interchange to be used at 120-degree intersections where 3 highways meet. I found at least one in Copenhagen, Denmark and one in Zurich, Switzerland, but these exist almost everywhere. All in all, it's pretty neat and symmetric, as well as upgradable with 2-lane mass transit highways. The Trumpet system interchange is meant to be used at T-shaped highway intersections and is another really common interchange type. This interchange has the same placement issue I hinted at for the double Trumpet interchange. My explanation for this and the fix will be covered in the next chapter. The Parclo interchange A2 is the first of 3 Parclos in the pack. Some might call this a bit excessive, but I'd disagree, as Parclos are absolutely everywhere, pretty flexible and also not super easy to build from scratch in-game. It is a service type interchange with an avenue crossing under the highway at 60 degrees. The A2 designation refers to the ramp placement and is correct for right-hand traffic countries. I believe the designation would be B2 if you placed this in a left-hand traffic save game. The Parclo interchange B2 is the second Parclo of the pack. I'm low-key hoping Jumble is going to be proud of me for including so many Parclos. It's essentially a mirrored version of the A2 Parclo, but still, because of the angle, it adds a unique building block for you to play around with while designing your highway networks. This would probably be designated an A2 Parclo in a left-hand drive save game. The Parclo interchange AB2 is the final Parclo of the pack and has the avenue crossing over the highway at 90 degrees. Here I would like to show a little trick of how you can use this one interchange twice to create a full cloverleaf or any other Parclo variation indirectly. Basically, it involves deleting the 2 highway segments under the avenue and the avenue in its entirety, before plopping down another interchange 180 degrees rotated while trying to get all the nodes to snap. From here, you have a super modular Parclo template and can delete or keep any ramps or loops of your choosing. The Diverging Diamond Interchange, or DDI for short, is the meme goat of all service interchanges, so I simply could not resist including one. Street level traffic crosses over to the wrong side of travel at crossover points on each side of a highway. In theory, this means there are only 2 points of conflict, and for more realism you can add traffic lights to these. A fun fact that you might not know is that adding and removing traffic lights is a vanilla feature nowadays, so you don't technically need mods like TMP for this anymore. The Dogbone interchange is a final service interchange of a pack. The reason for the choice of streets for the ramps here is to generate crosswalks. These are connected with pedestrian paths so that the intersection does not restrict pedestrian traffic. As with other interchanges, the roads are pretty flexible and upgradable without requiring mods. The compact roundabout is the final intersection of a pack. It may seem basic at a first glance, but it is in fact a very powerful piece of infrastructure. The roundabout can be upgraded with more lanes if needed without destroying the pedestrian connections, and the roads will maintain a continuous zoning grid. While making the intersections, I unfortunately had an oversight that was caught too late for the fix to make it into the release. The affected intersections are the double Trumpet and the Trumpet system interchanges. This issue is due to me primarily testing these interchanges on completely flat terrain, so when placed on even the most minuscule of slope, they will automatically turn some of the networks into tunnel versions. While still functional, it will cause some clipping and general ugliness. Fortunately, there is a fix, which is a big reason for why I wanted to make this video. By flattening the terrain where you want to place the interchange beforehand, the interchanges will look as intended when placed. The tedious thing about this is that you may need to flatten the terrain for quite a while if you are using the vanilla terraforming tools. Even if the terrain looks perfectly flat, it may still not be enough, so keep flattening until it is what I'd like to call atomically flat, and the pre-placement hologram shows no tunnel entrances at all. Because of how ploppable intersections follow terrain to some extent, it's always a good idea to flatten terrain beforehand, but it shouldn't be made a requirement, and I apologize for any inconvenience this will cause, and I hope that you will all forgive me. It's been bothering me ever since I found it, and even though I'm very proud of the pack in its entirety, I wish I would have spent just a little bit more time doing quality assurance to catch this earlier. And finally, the pack also includes 3 unique and handcrafted scenario maps. Scenarios were added to CitiesSkylines 1 with patch 1.6.0 along with the Natural Disasters DLC. I've said it before that I think scenarios are an underappreciated part of the game. In my mind, it opens up the game to casual players who don't have as much time to build a full city from scratch every time. I've seen time and time again with the previous scenarios I've made that players, when asked to first fix a certain issue, sometimes get more invested and eventually take ownership of a city and start improving, redeveloping and expanding it well beyond the scope of a scenario. Motorville Mayhem is a traffic fix scenario set in the town of Villebourg. It is based on the Fondue Lake map, and as you might imagine, traffic is pretty horrible. Your objective is to do whatever you can to improve the situation. I like how the scenario gives you an almost infinite amount of different ways in which you can beat it. I suspect many will go down the public transit route, and even more will try to rebuild the roads and highways. Anything goes, and if it works, it just works. Growing Pains is a sort of speed build scenario based on the Karstlands map, and it is set somewhere in the Far East along the Cormorant River. In this scenario, you are forced to quickly develop and grow a small farming community into a metropolis of 100,000 inhabitants within 10 in-game years. This might sound like a lot of time at first, but the terrain will challenge you, and it might end up being a closer call than you'd think. There are also gradual growth targets that need to be met early on, so you better waste no time. Transit-oriented is the final scenario, and it is based on the Tranquility Cove map. Here, the city of Port Eden is asking you to design, build and manage a brand new metro system. The goals are to build a certain length of track and transport 1 million people before the time runs out. This scenario was incredibly fun to build, but also to playtest. I didn't expect the vanilla game to be as fun and engaging when it comes to organizing and optimizing metro systems, and I attribute this in large part due to the addition of new metro vehicles to the base game with the Hubs and Transport update in patch 1.16.1. As the city is already fully built out, you can probably complete the scenario by just focusing on the transit network, which I like a lot about the scenario. And that is all for this already pretty jam-packed video. I am so excited about finally being able to share this with you all after months of secrecy. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions at all about the pack, and I will try to answer them to the best of my abilities. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you all in the next video.